Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really pivotal piece. This blog post from Dario Amodei back in April 2025.
That's right.
The central theme. Why it's now like super critical that we get a handle on how these advanced AI systems actually operate inside.
Absolutely. And Amodei laid out why this isn't just some, abstract intellectual puzzle anymore. AI has moved so fast.
So fast. From a niche field to, well, a huge force in economies, geopolitics. It's everywhere.
Yeah, its influence is just massive, and that pace, it doesn't seem to be slowing down at all.
Exactly. So why should you, listening right now, care about this specific exploration? Well, you're engaged, you want to understand the big forces shaping things, and AI is definitely one of them.
And Amodei's article, it really sharpens the focus on a core challenge right in the middle of this transformation.
Right. So our goal today, our mission, if you like, is to really unpack Amodei's argument for what he calls interpretability.
Which is basically gaining real insight, like understanding the inner workings of these incredibly complex AI systems.
And he frames it as this urgent race against the clock, because AI's capabilities just keep expanding.
They really do.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, look, for many of us outside the AI labs, this is where it gets fascinating, maybe a bit unsettling. We're building these amazing tools, incredibly intelligent, but often we don't fundamentally get why they make the decisions they do.
It's like having this cutting-edge gadget. You can use the interface fine, but the actual tech underneath, totally opaque, the black box.
Yeah, a black box. And if that feeling resonates with you, Amodei is saying, look, your concern is valid. This deep dive should shed light on why understanding this stuff matters so much.
He starts off by drawing a really key distinction, doesn't he, between this generative AI we have now and, traditional software.
Right. Old software like a video game character saying a line or your delivery app suggesting a tip.
Every single action is explicitly programmed.
Yeah.
A human wrote the code for that specific thing. There's a clear line of command.
But generative AI.
Yeah.
Totally different. It's not engineered step by step. It's more like cultivated.
That's a great word for it. Amodei uses this analogy like growing a plant or maybe a bacterial colony.
Okay.
You set up the high-level conditions, the AI architecture, the training data, the methods, but the exact internal stuff that emerges, often unexpected, hard to pin down.
And what is going on inside? It's just mind-bendingly complex.
Oh, yeah. We're talking vast networks, these huge matrices filled with billions, literally billions of numbers.
Billions.
And these numbers somehow work together to do really sophisticated things, summarize long texts, generate computer code even.
But the how? That specific process, still largely a mystery. You can't just look at the code and see the thinking.
Nope, not like traditional software at all.
And this lack of transparency, this opacity, as he calls it, that's where a lot of the potential risks and the current limitations of AI come from.
Exactly. This is a crucial point Amodei makes. If we could genuinely interpret these models, many of the big worries people have about AI could be tackled much more effectively.
So the worry about misaligned systems, AI going off and doing harmful things we didn't intend.
Precisely. Without understanding the internal logic, it's incredibly hard to predict when or how that might happen. You can't easily rule it out.
And Amodei does note that unexpected emergent behaviors do pop up, right? Which kind of highlights that unpredictability.
Absolutely. It happens. And this opacity also creates this difficult situation, this paradox almost.
How so?
Well, it makes it really hard to find definitive proof for or against some of the really big, scary risks, like AI becoming deceptive or actively seeking power.
Okay. So you end up with these really polarized debates.
Exactly. Because the opacity means concrete evidence is scarce. Some people see the theoretical arguments for deception or power seeking developing naturally during training.
While others say, show me the proof. Where has it actually happened in the real world?
And without that red-handed evidence, because we can't see inside clearly, it just fuels the argument.
Yeah.
Theory versus, lack of concrete examples.
Then there's the misuse concern. AI helping bad actors create, dangerous bioweapons or cyber tools, things beyond what you can just find online now.
That's another big one. The fear is we can't reliably stop these models from knowing or sharing dangerous information.
Because of jailbreaks.
Yeah.
People tricking the AI.
Yeah, current methods are mostly filters and patches after the fact. It's like this constant cat and mouse game. You plug one hole, another appears.
But Amodei suggests interpretability could offer a different path.
Potentially, yes. Maybe a way to proactively block those jailbreaks systemically and actually map out what dangerous knowledge the model even holds. Understand it properly.
Okay. And this opacity also just limits where we can even use AI safely, right?
For sure. Think about high-stakes stuff. Finance, safety-critical systems.
Yeah, you can't fully guarantee what it'll do, what its limits are, and even small mistakes could be disastrous.
Absolutely. Plus, you run into legal barriers. Like in some places, for mortgages, you need an explainable decision.
Right. If you can't say why the AI denied the loan, you can't use it. Full stop.
Exactly.
And even where AI is helping, like in science predicting protein structures, that kind of thing,
Yeah, amazing stuff.
the lack of interpretability means we don't always grasp the underlying science, the biological insight behind the prediction. We get the answer, but not the understanding.
Right. And Amodei mentions there's new research showing interpretability might actually help unlock that deeper scientific understanding, too.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So, okay, all these reasons point to needing to look inside the box. But for ages, the thinking was, it's just a black box, right? Too complex.
That was the dominant view for a long time, yeah. Fundamentally beyond us.
But that's changing.
It really is, largely thanks to pioneers like Chris Olah, who Amodei mentions specifically.
Oh,
Yeah, he's been central to pushing this idea of mechanistic interpretability.
mechanistic interpretability. Sounds technical.
It is, but the goal is simple. A systematic effort to, take apart the black box, understand all the pieces and how they fit together.
And this field is growing.
Massively. It started small, but now you've got dedicated teams in AI companies, academic labs, independent researchers. It's really taken off.
So walk us through the history a bit. Where did it start?
Well, Amodei talks about the early era, focusing mostly on vision models, AI that understands images.
Like identifying cats in photos.
Exactly. And they had real success identifying specific neurons that seem to represent concepts we get, like a car detector neuron or a wheel detector.
Sort of like that famous Jennifer Aniston neuron they found in the human brain.
Kind of analogous, yeah. And they even started mapping connections, like how the AI might identify a car by seeing wheels below a car-shaped blob.
Okay, so from vision to language.
Right. When Amodei and Olah co-founded Anthropic, applying these ideas to language models was a core goal. They had to build new mathematical tools, new software.
And what did they find initially in language models?
Some basic stuff pretty quickly, mechanisms for just copying text or recognizing simple patterns in sequence. And they did find some single neurons for specific words or concepts.
But there's always a but.
Always a but. The big challenge they hit was something called superposition.
Superposition. Okay, let's delve into this.
Yeah.
What is that?
Basically, it turned out most neurons weren't just representing one clean concept. They were acting like a messy combination of many different words, many ideas, all jumbled together.
Why would the AI do that? Seems inefficient.
Actually, it's the opposite for the AI. Think about it. The model needs to represent maybe billions of concepts, but it only has so many neurons.
Okay, limited resources.
Exactly. So superposition is its clever trick to pack more concepts into that limited space. One neuron does the work of representing bits of many different things.
Makes the model more capable.
More capable, yes, but much, much harder for us to read and understand. As Amodei says, AI isn't optimized for human legibility. It's optimized to work.
So that superposition problem, that was a major hurdle.
Huge hurdle. For a while, it really stalled progress, but then came a pretty significant breakthrough.
Which was?
Using a technique called sparse autoencoders.
Sparse autoencoders. Sounds like signal processing.
It is, yeah. And it let them find not just single neurons, but combinations of neurons, they called them features, that corresponded to much cleaner, more human, understandable concepts.
So not single neurons, but groups. And these features were clear.
Much clearer and way more nuanced. Things like detecting hedging or hesitation in text, or identifying genres of music expressing discontent, abstract ideas.
Wow, okay. And the scale of these features.
Astonishing. They found over 30 million of them in a medium-sized model, Claude 3 Sonnet.
30 million concepts.
Features, yeah. And the thinking is even smaller models might hold a billion or more underlying concepts. It's just vast.
How did they even figure out what 30 million features mean?
Good question. They developed something called auto-interpretability, using AI to interpret the AI.
Using AI to explain AI.
Basically, yeah. Getting the AI to help analyze these features and describe them in human language. It's key to actually making sense of it all at scale.
Okay, so from single neurons to superposition, then features. What's next?
Circuits, that's the current frontier.
Circuits. Like electrical circuits.
Sort of analogous. There are groups of these features that work together, showing the steps in the model's thinking, how concepts pop up, interact, and lead to an action or output.
So you can actually trace the reasoning.
That's the goal. Amodei gives this example. Ask, what's the capital of the state containing Dallas?
Okay. Texas, Austin.
Right. There seems to be a circuit that spots Dallas, activates the Texas feature, then another circuit connects Texas and capital to fire up the Austin feature.
So you can follow the chain.
That's the idea. They've only mapped a few manually so far, things related to rhyming in poetry or how concepts translate across languages, but it gives real insight.
And the plan is to automate finding these circuits, because there must be millions.
Millions, yeah. That's the next big push, automating circuit discovery.
So all this is incredibly cool from a science perspective, identifying features, tracing circuits. But Amodei asks the key question, right, so what?
Exactly. How does knowing about feature X or circuit Y actually help with the risks we talked about? The misalignment, the misuse.
How do we connect this deep understanding back to practical safety?
Well, they're starting to. Amodei describes an experiment they ran. They had a red team deliberately introduce an alignment problem into a model, make it behave badly in some subtle way.
Okay, it's a test case.
Then they had blue teams try to find the problem. Some of these blue teams had access to the new interpretability tools.
Damn, did it help?
It did. Several blue teams, including those using the interpretability tools, successfully found the flaw the red team hid.
Ah, so that's actual practical experience using these tools to find real problems.
Exactly. It's early days, but it's concrete evidence that this isn't just theoretical.
And the long-term goal is even bigger. He talks about an AI brain scan.
Yeah, that's the aspiration. Imagine being able to do a comprehensive checkup on an advanced AI.
What would you look for?
All sorts of things. Tendencies towards lying or power-seeking behavior, vulnerabilities to those jailbreaks we mentioned, even just understanding its cognitive strengths and weaknesses, like what it's good at, what it struggles with.
So it's like a diagnostic tool.
Precisely. Not necessarily replacing training or alignment techniques, but working alongside them, like how an MRI guides a doctor's treatment plan.
Makes sense. The MRI doesn't cure the patient, but it tells you what's wrong and where to focus.
Exactly that analogy. And Amodei suggests this kind of interpretability testing will likely be crucial, maybe even essential, for checking and deploying the really powerful AI models to come, especially the ones reaching high safety levels, like AI safety level 4.
So where does this leave us now? There seems to be optimism in the piece.
There is, yeah. Based on this recent progress finding features starting to map circuits, the testing experiments, and Amodei seems genuinely optimistic. He thinks a reliable MRI for AI is possible, maybe within 5 to 10 years.
But there's a catch.
There's the race aspect. The huge concern is how fast AI itself is improving. Amodei and others have talked about potentially seeing transformative AI systems way beyond anything now.
As early as 2026 or 2027, that's really soon.
Really soon. And the idea of deploying systems that powerful, systems that could, be like a country of geniuses in a data center.
Without really understanding them.
Amodei calls that basically unacceptable for humanity. Strong words.
Yeah. So that sets up this clear race. Interpretability versus AI capability.
It's the core tension. But it's maybe not all or nothing. Every win for interpretability, every bit more we understand,
gives us a slightly better ability to diagnose problems, a bit more control.
Exactly. It improves the odds incrementally.
So what does this all mean? What can actually be done to help interpretability win this race, or at least keep pace?
Amodei lays out concrete actions for different groups. For AI researchers, his message is clear: work on interpretability.
Even if it's not the flashiest work right now.
Especially now. He argues it's critically important, and the new stuff around circuits has opened up really exciting directions. He wants researchers and companies, academia, nonprofits, everywhere to jump in.
He mentions Anthropic is investing more.
Yeah, they're increasing their own investment, setting a goal for reliable problem detection using these methods by 2027. They're even backing interpretability startups.
And he's calling out the other big labs. Google, DeepMind, OpenAI.
Pretty directly, encouraging them to put more resources here. He even kind of appeals to their competitive side, suggesting leadership and interpretability could be a commercial edge down the line.
Interesting angle. And he thinks it's good for academics, too.
Definitely. He points out a lot of it feels like basic science, and parts of it don't need the massive computer clusters that training giant models requires, so it's accessible. He even suggests people from fields like neuroscience could contribute valuable expertise.
Okay, so that's researchers. What about governments?
He suggests light touch rules. The idea isn't to mandate specific techniques right now because the field is moving so fast.
So not telling them how to do interpretability.
Right. Instead, maybe require companies building these advanced models to be transparent about their safety practices, to disclose how they're using interpretability for testing.
Transparency to encourage best practices. A race to the top.
That's the phrase he uses. Foster competition on safety and interpretability. He mentions they suggested this to a California task force and thinks it could work federally, even internationally.
And there was one more government angle. Export controls.
Yeah, specifically on the advanced chips needed to train these huge models, sending them to potentially adversarial countries like China.
How does that connect to interpretability?
His argument is that slowing down the global race to the most powerful AI by limiting access to the hardware for certain actors creates a kind of security buffer.
Buys time.
Buys time for interpretability research to mature before we hit those potentially dangerous transformative levels of AI capability worldwide. He argues it's vital for democratic countries to stay ahead.
So even a year or two lead could make a difference.
It could be critical, he suggests. Enough time, perhaps, to get that AI MRI working before the really powerful stuff arrives everywhere. He contrasts that with a scenario where, say, the US and China reach that level simultaneously. The geopolitical pressure would likely make any kind of slowdown impossible.
Wow. Okay, so that brings a whole geopolitical dimension into it.
It really does. His closing thought is powerful, too. That this AI is going to profoundly shape our future, and we have a basic responsibility to understand what we're creating before it completely reshapes everything.
So, wrapping this all up, this deep dive into Amodei's thinking really hammers home the urgent need for progress in AI interpretability. It feels like we're genuinely in a race against the clock.
Absolutely. The capabilities are just accelerating so fast, and the potential downsides of deploying super powerful AI we don't understand are, well, they're significant. Safety, misuse, limitations, even holding back scientific discovery.
But on the flip side, there is real progress being made in mechanistic interpretability. It's not just a pipe dream anymore.
No, the work on features, on circuits, it offers genuine hope that we can gain these crucial insights. There's a growing belief it's actually possible.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty profound final thought to chew on, doesn't it?
It really does.
Consider the implications if we don't solve this. Yeah. If we don't crack interpretability before AI becomes truly deeply powerful. What does that world look like? What are the societal, the ethical consequences of living alongside, interacting with, depending on systems whose fundamental reasoning remains a mystery to us?
Yeah. That's the question to carry away from this, I think. What does that future look like if the black box stays black? Something worth reflecting on as this technology continues its incredible advance.